Today, it's 19th of August, 2021. And 30 years ago today began the momentous events which saw the end of the Soviet Union. We're going to review and we're going to play Gorbachev, The Fall of Communism, a game designed by R.Ben Madison from White Dog Games. Run VT. Okay, so welcome back. Welcome to Solo Board Gaming Presents. As I said, we're going to look at this fantastic game, Gorbachev, The Fall of Communism. And it's very timely to do so, seeing as we're in 2021 and 30 years ago, this August, this attempted coup took place. I think it lasted three to 4 days. A time where I remember very, very well the world held its breath. We just did not know what was going to happen. And more to the point, the long-suffering Russian people had no idea how these events were going to play out and affect their lives. This game immediately excited me because of the subject matter. Do enjoy the history of Russia and the Russian people, and particularly of the times of the Soviet Union itself. And I must admit, as these events were happening, much like in 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down, they were events that I thought in my lifetime I would never see happen. And they did. Now, ultimately, the coup was unsuccessful, and this game, we are going to replay those events. Sometimes they're going to be in a slightly different order, of course, because that's the nature of gaming. But we're going to replay those events and see if we, as chief advisor to President Mikhail Gorbachev, can prevent a coup happening at all. So that's what we're going to struggle with, and struggle we will, because it's a states of siege type game, which many of you will be very, very familiar with, where basically you're defending a central area or box, like it is here, which is Moscow. There it is in orange. It says Moscow coup, with an armoured fighting vehicle there, because obviously it ended up with tanks and troops and armoured fighting vehicles on the streets. The idea is we need to defend that box against all of the other boxes. Now, what are the other boxes? Typically states of siege, we have various tracks. You can see here in green is one track. This is Central Asia. Here we have the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Again, a track starting out here and making its way towards the central box. Here we have Russia, the Soviet Republic of Russia, and its track making its way to the central box. We have the Baltic states, and that's their track there, making their way to here. And we also have the Caucasus, with the track making the way to the centre. And the idea is that pressure is going to build up throughout the game during all of this political upheaval. If ever one or more of the tracks makes its way to the central box and we can't keep it away, we've failed to keep it away, and the track has ended up in the central box, that triggers a coup. That triggers a coup, and we have to find out then if the coup is successful or not. If it's not, we bat it away and we continue to battle against all this mounted pressure. If the coup is successful, game over. So that's it in a nutshell. As I was doing this, you'll have noticed this map on this fairly small playing area, but perfect for solo play. The fact that it is a relatively small solo area. But you'll have noticed the map, and I know that some of you will have gone, oh my gosh, that map hurts my eyes. I get that, I understand it. It has been criticised and praised in equal number. I'm not 100% sure, but having said that, I like the theme. I get it that as a background, a map of the Soviet Union of the time has been chosen. Starts over here, that this is Afghanistan, look. And then we have the Caucasus republics. We have Romania down here. Here's Warsaw, and so on. And obviously Moscow in the middle. And so I get that. But on top of that, we've put these boxed tracks in garish colours, fluorescent colours even. Look, if you look at this green and that orange. And I think some people have found that offensive. At first look, it shocked me too. But I get it. It's almost actually, when I think back, it's reminiscent of those times. It's reminiscent of the 70s and 80s, where everything did seem to be very, very colourful, pop art and all that. And particularly in Eastern Europe, I'm thinking of the DDR, which I've researched fairly extensively over the years. So I sort of get it. And now, having played the game, I've fallen in love with it and I'm used to it. The one thing that still rankles slightly is some of the strange font choices. I find them really strange and maybe a little bit too much faux Cyrillic lettering. But, you know, hey, the theme's there and it's a hell of an enjoyable game. And it is very reminiscent, very thematic of its age. And to replay those momentous events that a lot of us actually saw play out on television is an amazing experience. So that's it. That's the map. Let's have a look at some of the other components. Components such as a brilliant rule book. I thoroughly enjoyed going through this rule book. It's so thematic. It's a relatively simple rule book. It's not tons of pages. I mean, 11 pages. That's all. 11 pages of rules with bags of illustrations. Let's have a quick look. Won't go through the whole thing. But there you go. Split up into very simple paragraphs. Lots of nice photographs of the Soviet Union at the time. Lots of flavour text. Lots of designer notes. Tons of political history of the times. And at the end, actually, something I really appreciated and enjoyed was the designer notes from Ben Madison. Those designer notes were absolutely fascinating, building on his own experiences, or rather how the game builds on his own experiences, both of his education. He majored in the politics of the Soviet Union, history of the Soviet Union at university, and he has, of course, visited the Soviet Union. Hero of the Soviet Union, Order of the October Revolution. Brilliant. And again, fantastic thematic photographs from the Soviet Union at the time. Really enjoyed reading that rule book. I'll treasure that. I really like that. On top of that, we have an event sheet as a player aid, which reminds us of some of the events, and I will be referring in and out of the rule book and the player aids, I'm sure, throughout this, because although it's a relatively simple game, there are nuances about when you can do certain things or what happens once such and such a chit is in play, that I do find I have to keep nipping back to the rule book or to the player aid just to check up on that. And on the other side of it is a really extended example of play, and that's really useful as well. Over here, you can't quite see all of it, but we've got a player aid card which acts as a counter tray for setup and to store some of the counters. So there's counters over there on the tray, and there's also a sequence of play there as well to remind us of the sequence of play. Another set of components are the deck of cards here. Now, the deck of cards, well, first of all, the cards, as in many such games like this, actually drive the game. And on the card, you will each card will give you instructions on what to do next in a specific order, which you must stick to, and also tons of history, tons of flavour text that I really, really enjoy. And I usually can't wait to start flipping these cards. Although, yes, okay, I've seen them all, but we keep shuffling them. We don't know what order they're going to come out in and so on, which is why it's quite safe to do a play demo like this and to be showing some of the cards. That's no problem at all. So to actually set up the game then, I've actually already done that. There's no point in going through all of the setup right now because it's very clearly outlined in the rules. But briefly, some of the counters, as I mentioned a minute ago, are held on the counter tray until they come into the game. And if we quickly go around the board now, we've got the time counter here, which starts in the winter of 1985. And as you play each card, you'll move through spring, summer, autumn, back to winter, and so on, and then change the year. This is the year track here. It goes from 1985 through 1991. And this also shows us how we split up these cards, how we split up the card set like so. Because if you look at the symbol, this is a black multi-pointed star. These two years here, 1985 and 86. That's the first set of cards here. So the cards for those years are split off from the rest, shuffled and placed like so. And then the next set of cards, you see the white star for 87 and 88. Those are split off, shuffled, placed there. We have one set of cards, the black circle for 1989, and there they are. And then 1990 and 91 has a black cross, and that's the final set of cards. So things will happen in a certain order, era-wise, annually if you like, but within that we're not sure what order things are going to happen in. Excellent, I like that. And there's the year marker there. As I said, we're starting in 1985. So our game will run 1985 to 1991. Will we even get there? On my last game, which was my second game of this, I didn't. I got to the end of 1988. And I lost the game because I couldn't stop a coup from the Caucasus, which took me by surprise, actually, and that can happen. Okay, and we've got the Warsaw Pact allies set up here. We've got Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Romania. We've got the DDR, East Germany. We've got Poland, Solidarność, and Hungary. So those are the Warsaw Pact, and we can actually manipulate those throughout the game. We can allow, eventually, as Gorbachev, and I'm the chief advisor of Mr. Gorbachev, we can allow each of these Warsaw Pact countries to have more freedom. That will make us very, very popular in the outside world, and give us more points to spend. However, it will also be having detrimental effects and weakening us in the long run. But we can't do any of that while the Brezhnev, and there he is, the Brezhnev doctrine is in place. That's basically the doctrine that held the Warsaw Pact together as a tight unit. Down here, we've got the DDR, which is quite important, obviously. You know, most of us, or sorry, I shouldn't be saying that, many of us remember the momentous events of December 1989 when the wall came down. So the DDR has its own box here. You can see the Berlin Wall. We have nuclear missiles based there. We have 2 units of, I think it's the 1st and the 2nd Guards Tank Army based there as our forces in Germany. And we have the 28th Corps in Warsaw Pact. And these are the Warsaw Pact countries here, as well as more ballistic missiles. President Ronald Reagan is President of the United States. As we start this period, there he is, beaming out at us. Used to love his jokes, by the way. What else? Oh, of course. And here we have Afghanistan. 40th Army forces in Afghanistan. They're on the side which is green for go, but there is also a side red for stop. We'll come across that. So, as well as these 5 paths leading towards the centre, which is Moscow here, we also have to be careful of these 3 paths here, the state assets. Here's our counters that start at this end of the track. They have their own track, and just like the main tracks on the board, if any of those reach their end point there, the 0 box, they can trigger a coup in just the same way as can these 5 tracks. So it's not really 5, it's 8 tracks that we're looking at and trying to balance, spinning those plates to try and keep us going for as long as possible. We have the 5-year plan, media and culture, which obviously played a massive part, and we have military might. Finally, on the board here, we have the Politburo. Look at them. These are great. I really love all these real political figures. All the faces here. Yeltsin, Ligachev, Gorbachev, Shevardnadze. I remember him very, very well. Pugo, Yanayev, and so on. So while they're all happily in the Politburo in this box, they are in support of Mr. Gorbachev, who we're trying to advise. However, they can slowly throughout the game form an opposition, go from this box to that box, and this is the Politburo opposition. And however many politicians are in that box at the time of an attempted coup could mean the difference between the coup succeeding or failing. We have to, these guys are going to be fairly mobile. We need to keep an eye on those guys there. Now, what else do we have? We have 2 draw cups that we're going to use throughout the game. Again, keeps it exciting. We have a draw cup full of massacres. Now, these massacres could happen anywhere if we draw those. Now, really, by massacres, what the games mean is sometimes it could be a massacre or brutality in holding down or suppressing mass demonstrations. So they could be massacres then by Soviet troops or police, or they could be ethnic massacres occurring in various places in the Soviet Union. So that is one of the draw cups full of massacres. The other one, my goodness me, this one has a pack of disasters in them. Let's pick out a disaster, see what we're going to get. Disaster, for instance, this time, minor strike, and I know there's a couple of those in there, and these are going to affect the game. Now, the game will, the setup instructions will inform us which of the disasters to put in the cup and which of the disasters to put in a small pile here There are, I think, is there 6 of them there, or is there 5 of them? And we place those on the third pile of cards. The third pile of cards, we have 1, 2, 3, there it is. Meaning that in 1989, events start increasing in intensity. So those new disasters, those are now added to the disasters cup for the chit draws. And I think that's just about it, because everything else will go through as we now start to play through the play demo. So let's go. Each turn, I will be turning over a card from this deck. When this deck is exhausted, then I'll start turning over cards from the next deck. And I will explain each time I do that. So that's how we'll go. So maybe if I leave it there as regards explanation, and now try zooming in a little bit more. And in the meantime, I don't think that's helped at all. However, let's go. So first of all, I'm going to turn over the first card of the first deck of the first era, like so. What are we going to get? There we go. The very first thing we must remember, and this happens on every single card, is that red clock face there reminds us to move the time forward. So we'll do that right now. We'll move the time forward from winter into spring. And that happens, that little red clock will be on the front at the start of every single card that you turn. It's to remind us to move into spring. So we're in spring 1985. The next thing we have is a G for Gorbachev. It reminds us to roll for Mr. Gorbachev. Now, I'm going to roll, and I rolled a 4. So Gorby will stay where he is. If I roll a 5 or a 6, Gorby will instead move into the box called Gorby Mania. And while the cat's away, the mice will play. And that means that the rest of the Politburo can, for instance, stamp down on demonstrations and get rid of them. We'll look at that later in the game. Meanwhile, we haven't rolled a 5 or 6, so Gorby stays where he is. That's absolutely fine. The next thing we have is, on this particular card, it tells us disaster. Now that might not happen on every single card, but on this card it does. So we take our cup full of disasters, we give it a shake and find out what disaster is going to befall us today. Oh, Matthias Rust. Do we remember Matthias Rust when he piloted that little Cessna? Was it a Cessna? And he invaded the entire Soviet air defense system, went under the radar and actually landed in Red Square, which caused chaos in the Soviet Union and certain repercussions. So let's find out what happens with the Matthias Rust. Well, it's actually good for us because media and culture goes up 1. Media and culture. Oh no, sorry, goes up 1. I was putting it down then. Like so. And when it goes up 1, we turn it over, like so. Onto its side, we rotate the chit. I'll explain that when it comes to it. So media and culture goes up 1, as does military might. Rotate the chit, like so. Excellent. That's actually a good start. Some members of the Politburo might not have liked it, but we did. Gorby did. It strengthened his arm, because actually what he did when Matthias Rust landed in Red Square in that little Cessna, he purged the military. He sacked a lot of his generals, which gave him a firmer grip on the military. Hence that goes up there, and media and culture also goes up. So that's now discarded. It's out of the game. So the next thing we do, what else is the card going to tell us to do? Every time we see a black downward pointed triangle, like here we have downward CPSU, downward media and culture, that means, for instance, the CPSU track moves down towards Moscow. That's not good for us. It's the Communist Party gaining strength. And also media and culture, we've only just moved that up, but actually it unrotates and moves back down like so. Okay, and now the way to push the dangers back from Moscow along the tracks, or back from the end of the tracks here back towards the area where we want to keep them, the way to do that is by way of efforts. It's called efforts, and every turn you get so many efforts. Now, unfortunately, this card has given us no efforts whatsoever, so we're struggling here, except it also has a plus G2. Now, it'll always have plus G2, because that will tell us to check on Gorby, and if Gorby is still in the Politburo, in the Kremlin, he's not in the Gorby Mania box, he's actually in the Kremlin, it gives us plus 2 efforts, so we get 2 efforts. Now then, what should we do with our 2 efforts? We're going to try and push CPSU back. With one of my efforts, I'm going to roll a die. See the number 4 on CPSU? If I roll a 4 or higher, I can push the CPSU influence back. I rolled a 5. Okay, so the CPSU goes back. Nice easy start for us there, but that's how it works. I've got one more effort next. What can I do? Shall I try to... Okay, I can try and push back media and culture or the 5-year plan. For the 5-year plan, I'd have to roll a 4 or higher. For media and culture, I'd have to roll a 5 or higher. Because I've only got one effort to spend, and 5-year plan is the easiest, I'll try for that. Let's go. 5-year plan, push back, and I rolled a 6. I'm rolling pretty well, which is higher than that 4. So 5-year plan gets pushed up the track and rotated like so. There we go. So we get to the end of turn phase. Now, at the end of turn phase, there are various things that can happen. As regards ourselves, we have potential bonuses we can spend here. The rotated token, and it rotates, by the way, each time it moves first into the 6 box, can be spent as a bonus. The bonus for 5-year plan means that we could, if we were particularly threatened on any of these tracks, place a +1 dice roll modifier in our favour on any of these tracks. No real issues at the moment, we're quite happy. Military might, we could spend that bonus by unrotating it, and that will allow us to put a, here we go, if I can just get one, an MVD security. These are the internal security troops, OMON and things like that. We could place an MVD security counter on any of these tracks, because while there's an MVD security counter on a track, it's more difficult for a people marker, that's these markers on each of the tracks, to actually pass it. So it causes, if you like, a roadblock. We have the MVD interior troops working for us. And again, there's no real need to do that right now. However, I'm going to do it just by way of illustration. So I'm going to unrotate military might, spend that bonus, and I will place that. I can't place it on the CPSU track, the Communist Party track, Communist Party would never allow that. So what I will do, I will place it on the Moscow track. There we go. MVD security. So I've got the interior military troops in play already. And now it's turn end and ready to turn another card. So we turn our second card, like so. Disarmament talks failed in Reykjavik, Iceland, when Reagan refused to abandon his plans for the Star Wars space-based weapon system. But the fall of 1986 was still a time of hope in the USSR. Andrei Sakharov, a scientist who challenged the Soviet-Afghan war, was freed from internal exile in late 1986 by Gorbachev, and 140 other political prisoners were also let go. So that's this card. There's always some great history on them, great flavour text. First of all, like every card, we have to move the time. So we go from spring to summer. And the next thing, we have to see what Gorbachev's going to do. So we roll our dice. And if you remember, we're looking for a 5 or a 6. We got a 6. Okay, Gorby's on the move. Gorby's going to his Dhaka in the country. There he is. And he's on the move. Why is that important? Well, guys, it means, remember the 2 efforts that Gorby in the Politburo allowed us to take during that last turn? Not this turn. He's away. He's on an away day. He's in his country, Dhaka. Okay, so that was Gorby on the move. The next thing is, okay, massacre. We have to draw massacre. So we're drawing from the other cup this time. Like so. Let's see what's going to happen. Massacre, Sukhumi in the Caucasus. Massacre in Sukhumi. And you see the consequence of that is Caucasus moving downwards, the black downward facing triangle. So Caucasus is coming towards us like so. We're now on here, 3 boxes away from Moscow. Discard that. So that was ethnic violence in the Caucasus that caused us to move that counter on that track. Now the next one, it's, oh dear, here are the movements. Downward triangles, Russia, down 1. Where are we? Oh, he can't move. The MVD's there. That saved us. It means we've now spent the MVD security, but it did prevent them moving back towards Moscow. That's good. So that's worked, but now we remove it. It can be used again. And it basically means that that track wasted a go. So that worked. Central Asia, that's moving down. So pressure's building. Media and culture, that's moving down. Let's keep an eye on that one. And we get 1 effort this turn. This is what the card is giving us. 1 effort. And G2, Gorby 2. No, we can't, because he's not at home. He's on holiday. So we only get the 1 effort. No, okay, we've got 1 effort. I'm going to spend it, because I don't want to waste it, I'm going to spend it on Caucasus, because that can be difficult to push back, because we need 4 or more. This one's a bit easier. We'd only need 3 or more, which is why actually I'm not going to do it now. We can save that until in case it gets more dangerous. Let's try that one. So I've got to roll a 4 or more to spend that 1 effort. Oh dear, no good. I rolled a 2. So that stays there, wasted the effort. But the things now we can do, and we can do this towards the end of each turn, to earn ourselves more efforts when the situation gets dangerous. I won't mention all of them. We'll come across them as we go. But for instance, we could throw one of our Warsaw Pact allies to the wolves, allow them to crack on, if you like, on their own without support from Moscow. There are repercussions for that, but it would earn us a fair amount of efforts because the outside world, the West, if you like, sees it as a good thing. However, we can't use that to gain more efforts at the moment because the Brezhnev doctrine is still in place. We could get rid of some army corps, bring some army corps back home. The Politburo are not going to like that. We can't bring Afghanistan back home at the moment because the stop signal is still showing. And we can't move forces out of the DDR at the moment. We could enter into those arms talks and spend some ICBM, get rid of ICBM, but there are always repercussions, even with disarmament. So we're on to the end of turn again because we don't want to, we don't need as such any more efforts just yet. So it's the end of turn. We'll go on to our third card. As usual, time. Must remember time. So we're moving into the autumn now of our first year. Remember Gorby? So we have to check Gorby. If he's in the Gorby Mania box, he now automatically comes back to the Politburo. No rolls or anything like that. He just trots back, having had a good time, topped up his tan, and so on. The next instruction we have to follow, disaster. So we're going to have to draw disaster. Get the disaster cup, swizzle, swizzle, swizzle. Draw a disaster. What do we have? Oh dear. Chernobyl. We have the Chernobyl disaster a year before it actually happened. There it is. There's the radiation symbol. Chernobyl explodes. And what a disaster that was. In reality, it happened in 1986 and was a major factor in the downfall of the Soviet Union, in hindsight. The card, an ugly reminder that the Cold War was not yet over. The arrest in New York of a Soviet spy, the Danilov crisis, turned into international incident when the Soviets retaliated by arresting and torturing a US journalist, Nicholas Danilov. This quickly escalated into a pissing contest between Gorbachev and Reagan. Hundreds of diplomats were expelled, and finally the two prisoners were exchanged in September 86. Meanwhile, we go back to the card. We're doing everything in very strict order. We just drew disaster. It was the Chernobyl disaster. So just before we move on, what happens to us? Our 5-year plan goes down. Okay. So we have to unrotate it and move the 5-year plan down. In other words, it's done nothing for our economy. But media and culture goes up. Like so. So, okay, that was relatively neutral in the short term anyway. Because what happens now? As a result of this card, keep following the instructions in order. Media and culture comes down. It's always a fight with media and culture as to which way it's going to go. As media tries to respond to world events and then is controlled again by the party and so on. Military might comes down as well. So military might moves down. And unfortunately, no efforts. But remember, every time plus G2. Where's Gorby? Is he? Yes, he is. There he is. He's in the Politburo, so we do get his 2 efforts. So I've got 2 efforts to spend. And we had our interior troops stop the Russia track, didn't we? 2 efforts. Okay. Again, I'm going to try and push back Caucasus. I need a 4 or more. 2. Failed. I'm going to try again. Use the second effort to do the same thing. Come on. Oh, 6. So we rolled a 6. So that's our 2 efforts used. Caucasus push back. I'm quite happy with that. End of turn. Draw another card. Comrade Orange Juice, it's called. The young new General Secretary of the CPSU left mixed first impressions on the Soviet Republic. Gorbachev was eager to get out and meet the crowds, but his first policy shift aimed at reducing drunkenness by raising the price of vodka. Falling sales led to a budget deficit. There was that much vodka being sold on a daily basis. Led to a budget deficit and an epidemic of poisonings and shortages. As Soviet citizens tried to make booze at home, sales of alcohol on the black market undermined the socialist economy. Wow, Comrade Orange Juice. Very good. Okay, must move the time marker. So we're moving it from autumn to winter. Now, each time you move it to winter, you move the year marker 1 forward. We are now in 1986. Okay, G2. Gorbachev. Let's see if he moves. Remember, each time he's in the Politburo, there he is. We have to roll a die. If we get a 5 or a 6, we didn't. We got a 2. If we get a 5 or a 6, he moves to his Dhaka. I shouldn't. I'm being a bit unfair, actually. He could be going to the countryside for a holiday, but half the time he was also travelling, mainly around the Western world, shaking hands. He loved the adoration of the crowds. Now, the next one, another new one. Here we go. No massacre this time, no disaster. Instead, we've got demonstration. Let's show you how demonstration works. So, first of all, with demonstrations, we have to find out which track, what part of the Soviet Union the demonstrations are happening in. So the first thing we can do is roll a die. There we go, and it's a 1. Oh dear, okay, it's a 1. If you look at the last box of each track around Moscow, they all end on a different number. 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. And that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That's it. Okay. So we rolled a 1. So we know that the demonstration is happening somewhere here on the Baltics track. Now, which box? So we roll again. And we've rolled a 2. The demonstration is happening in box 1, 2, here. So let's have a look at what the potential different types of demonstration there are. We can either have Niet or Da. No or yes. Niet gives us a -1 to a dice roll, and Da gives us +1 to a dice roll. We rolled for box number 2, that box there, okay? If the modifier is after the people token, there's the people token, and the boxes that are free are all at the moment after the people token, then the modifier that we place is Niet -1. Those are demonstrations against our administration, against the reforms of Gorbachev. It's not good. If, for instance, the people's marker was there and we'd have rolled a 4, so the marker goes, the modifier, the protest goes behind the people marker, it wouldn't be a minus modifier, it would be a +1 modifier. Da. A protest in favour of our reforms. You see? So that couldn't happen on this turn because the people marker is way back there anyway. So the marker that goes on number 2, closer to Moscow, is a negative marker, and yet the protest there is anti-reforms. Okay, so that wasn't a brilliant turn of events. The next thing that happens is Russia down, 5-year plan down. So the Russia track moves down. This time there's no MVD there to stop them. The 5-year plan track moves down. And do you know, I can't believe this. Yet again, no efforts. No efforts. And Gorby, 2, let's check, where is he? Yes, he's in the Politburo, so we do get his 2 efforts. Crumbs, okay. So, one effort I'm going to apply to the 5-year plan. I want to move the 5-year plan back up here, improve our economy again. To get it into this box, I need to roll a 4 or more, look. There you go. So let's use one of our 2 efforts. Do I get a 4 or more? No, I get a 2. Let's try one more. And this time, I got a 6. Brilliant. Okay, so we had 2 efforts. It's moved the 5-year plan back a bit. That's fine. So that's that one now discarded. And we're moving on to our next turn. And we draw our next card. Yeltsin quits after legalizing rowdy protests, sacking much of the Moscow party establishment, and a bizarre speech calling Gorbachev a closet Stalinist. He was a weird guy. Yeltsin finally came to blows with the CPSU. In late 1987, he quit as head of the Moscow party. But many Russians, and this is the important bit to remember about coming events, but many Russians saw him as a martyr. So anyway, move the timer into spring. Place Yeltsin. That's the next thing we have to do. We have to take Mr. Yeltsin. Where are we? He's over here, isn't he? There he is. There's Mr. Yeltsin, who's just resigned, and place him in the same box as the Russia marker. Now, the effect of Mr. Yeltsin being there is that as Russia marker comes down towards Moscow, we can't push it back up beyond Mr. Yeltsin. So Mr. Yeltsin now makes it harder or impossible, basically, for Russia to go back into its original box. Things are starting to move. Demonstration is next. Another demonstration marker. Let's find out which track. It's a 6. We can't do that because there's already one in Moscow, a demonstration marker in Moscow, and number 6 would have been Moscow. So we roll again, and it's a 1. And 1 is here. Which box is it going to go in? Let's have a look. Box number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be a minus marker. There's already a minus marker there, so they cancel one another out. That remains there, but we don't place a new one. Okay, the next thing after demonstration is Russia. It's moving down again, like so. Caucasus. That's moving down, so that's coming towards us. Media and culture. Now, media and culture is moving down, but it's about to move onto that square there, which says Pravda. Pravda is the newspaper organ of the Communist Party, basically, of the state. So we take a Pravda token. Where are they? Here. And we'll take one with the number 4 on it, which is the highest one. And we can place that now on any track we like. And that can help halt people markers moving down the track. It responds differently to the MVD, Interior Ministry Troops marker that we used before. But nevertheless, it can help slow down advances. It's just a case of, okay, I'm going to place it there on the Russia track to help slow down this approach here. Okay, so that was media and culture moving down there. And we get 1 effort plus G2. Where's Gorby? He's in the support box of the Politburo. So a total of 3 efforts. What should we do with our 3 efforts? Media and culture, push it back again? Yes, we will. Let's try and push that back. We need a 3 or more to get it into that box. We've got a total of 3 efforts. And we've got the 3. Push media and culture back. That's because, you know, the reason I wanted to push that back is because when it moves down again it moves onto that Pravda space, and again it gets us another Pravda marker. Although they do diminish in effectiveness. We'll explain that when we get to it. So that was 1 effort. We've got Gorby's 2 efforts next. Because we can't push Russia back. I've already explained what Yeltsin's doing there. So let's try the Central Asian people marker. We need a 3 or more, but we got a 2. But for our last effort, we'll try once more. And this time we got a 6. And we've pushed that back. We don't need additional effort, so we don't need to get rid of missiles, withdraw troops, ditch our allies, which we can't anyway because Brezhnev doctrine is still there. So that's end of turn. Next turn. Lithuania's flag. During 1988, the Western-orientated, political savvy Lithuanians seized the reins of Soviet reform, all out of proportion to their numbers. Brave little, plucky little Lithuania. Firmly opposed even to membership in the Soviet Union, Lithuania's own Communist Party voted in November 88 to restore the pre-war flag, and that's what you see on there. Let's move the timer. Spring into summer. Let's look at Gorby. He's here. Is he going to go on one of his travels? No, we rolled a 2. He's staying put. But the Baltics, led by Lithuania, are now a lot stronger. Look, the next thing we have to do is replace the Baltics marker with its stronger 5 version. At the moment, the Baltics marker, there we go, is a 3. We discard that now, and we replace it with its stronger number 5 version. So that's going to be now more difficult to push back. And you're going to see a bit of that happening as we move along. So that was that. Demonstration. Okay, let's see which path the demonstration is going to run on. Path number 5. Oh, demonstration on the Russia path. Which box? Box number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Demonstration here. Now, good. It's beyond the people marker. So it's not a minus DRM. It's a plus DRM. It's a da. There we go. So it is going to sit there. That'll be useful. Look how we've bracketed this now. Very good. Okay. So that was our demonstration. And the next is disaster. Another disaster. Draw. Armenian earthquake. Oh dear. The Armenian earthquake. Did that not kill a lot of people? It killed at least 30,000 people. Russian troops were sent in and so on. But it resulted in anti-Gorbachev feeling. So the Armenian earthquake disaster, let me just check. So that gives us Caucasus going up 1. There you go. Which we did. Right. So that was the disaster. Next one is Russia comes down. Now you'll see it working. Right. Russia comes down. Now, if, first of all, we roll against that number 4 on the Pravda newspaper. If we roll below it, not equal, it's got to be strictly below. So a 1, 2 or 3, we can prevent that Russia move taking place. 1. Brilliant. We've prevented the Russia token moving up. So the state organ propaganda has kept the people at bay and it remains on the map. Very different effects if we didn't manage to roll correctly. If we'd have rolled a 4, 5 or 6, the effects would have been very different. We may see that happen. Okay, that was Russia moving down. Baltics next. See, thing is, there's that strong token. That's going to be tough to move back. Military might moves down. See how our state assets are on a row now. But we get 3 efforts and Gorby 2. Total of 5 efforts this turn. Okay, let's go. 5 efforts this turn. 5 efforts. I'm going to probably put as many as possible into here because look, to push those back is going to be so hard. I may as well keep trying now while I've got these 5 efforts and there's no other real threat to me. So I'm going to try pushing those back. Equal to or higher than 5. That's hard. But -1 off the dice roll because of this protest here. So basically, I can only roll a 6. So I've got 5 efforts. First one, try the Baltics. 4, no good. I'll try another one. Come on. 5, no good because of the -1 demonstrations. Third effort, and I got a 6, and that took 3 of my 5 efforts. So I pushed it back 1. I'm happy with that. I've got 2 more efforts. I'm going to go 5-year plan, 4 or more. Rolled a 2. That's no good. I'm going to try it once more with my last effort, and that's a 3. That's no good either. Don't need to raise more efforts at the moment. End of turn. Next turn. Law on state enterprises. Move the clock. We're moving into autumn. Where's Gorby? He's there. Does he go on his travels? No, I rolled a 4, so he stays where he is. Demonstration. Demonstrations again. Demonstrations will build. So roll, we got a 6. That gives us a demonstration in Moscow. There's already one there. Roll again. 5. 5, demonstration on the Russia path. Which box? 2. Box number 2. So that's going to be a minus demonstration. We didn't particularly want that. -1, niet. -1 to our die rolls. Oh, no fun, no fun. Okay, Central Asia moves down. 5-year plan moves down. Media and culture moves down. We get a Pravda marker because we just moved back into the Pravda square. I'm going to put it on the Baltic track because they are very strong. Don't like it. Now 3 efforts and 2 for Gorby. 5 efforts again. So we'll have to leave it there, folks. A lot has happened so far, but in general, it's a fairly slow build. In part 2, the second video in this series, we will take the game through its crescendo, if you like, because there's a lot going to be happening now. And we're going to have to do a lot more to keep these parties away from Moscow and causing a coup. So join us in part 2. See you then. Thanks for watching.